This is a piston door, and this is a redstone lamp display. Now, surely we can't combine the two, can we? Well, howdy hey hi, Michael23B here, and I'm here to tell you that we can. So in today's video, not only do I have a 3x3, but also a 5x5 piston door. And the idea is that I want to be able to display images, animations, and even interact with the display, while also being able to move the entire thing out of the way. So how are we going to do this? Well, before we get started, I have just a little secret to share. Just come a bit closer, and yeah, okay, I have no idea how to make piston doors. That is, anything that's a 3x3 or larger, I am admittedly clueless. Of course, I could make some sort of honey and slime flying machine door, but those don't exactly count. Anyway, in order to get started, I hopped on the Synergy server and got some help from none other than my friend Sacred Redstone, who, by the way, is an absolute wizard at piston doors. And my idea is that if we could have a one-wide, tolerable piston door, we could stack multiple slices together, one slice with the lamps and the others with the observer input to power those lamps. Except that doesn't really work. As you can see, the observers for the lamps just break the door entirely, and yeah, we're gonna need something entirely different. Once again, Sacred Redstone got to work building a door specifically for accomplishing what I wanted. And after a bit of work, this is what we've got. A functioning 3x3 door with lamps on the front. So now it's just up to me to wire the display and put whatever animations I want onto it. So over in my single player world, you can see we've got a few different variations of the door. Some of these display animations and there are other ones over there. So I'll go ahead and start off with this one. We can go ahead and close it, and it closes rather quickly. And then it displays this cool little swirly animation that just goes round and round. And then of course we can open it back up again, and it opens rather quickly. And yeah, very, very cool. Of course, Sacred Redstone did a great job with this, but then the things that I added onto it is wiring up those lamps to actually do the animation. So all this rail stuff here is part of powering the lamps. And then we have a cutoff system here. So these pistons will extend and retract to stop the clock from powering the lamps. And that is one of the things about this door, is that if the lamps are receiving a signal while you try to open the door, it will just completely break. So yeah, we have to cut them off, and that's what these pistons are for. And then of course we have the clock behind it. So this, once you close the door, this clock will go round and round, and then it will power these observers. And then it just starts basically an observer clock that will do the animation. So yeah, that is very cool. And then of course we have our input system. Let's go ahead and find it here. This will power the input, go to this rail, and then it will power the piston right here. This extends the redstone block and starts the opening or closing animation, or rather the opening and closing functionality. And then of course it also enables or disables the clock. And one of the things about the clock is that we could go ahead and grab a lever here, and if you want, we could just permanently disable the animation. So let's go ahead and close the door from this side. You can see we have these observers powering the middle lamps, and then we also have, of course, observers on the left and the right powering the other lamps. And then, as I said, you could power this power this lever, and it will disable the animation if you want to. Of course, you don't need this. But yeah, that is just something you can do. And of course, if you want to change the animation, you could do whatever you want with these observer lines that you want to. So these observers you have to keep on these rows, and these observers over here you have to keep. But everything else, this whole observer note block line coming from the clock over here, and this observer line coming up here, that's just what programs the animation. So you could remove all this and configure it however you want to make your own animation. But yeah, that is our first animated door. So let's go over to our second one. This one is just slightly different. You'll see if I close it, we get a nice little animation going downwards just repeatedly. So that is very cool, and we can open it back up again, and the entire thing will move out of the way. So very, very cool. We just have a slightly different observer chain here. This one just goes up and then it goes straight down, and then over here we have it go up and then straight down. So that just powers each lamp in succession to do the downward animation. And I can go ahead and close it from this side over here, or open it rather, so you can look at what's actually happening. So yeah, very, very cool. Now, last but not least, at least for the 3x3 doors, we have a slightly different idea, and this one is actually a password door. So you can go ahead and draw on the door, and we can trigger whatever lamps we want to. And only if I hit the specific sequence will it open up. So I can go ahead and hit a bunch of these. And basically it just acts as a drawing pad. So let's go ahead and deactivate the correct ones. And once I get a plus, that is the password. And it should start opening up. There we go. Then we could walk through. Then we could activate this button and it will close right back up. And nothing will be left on the display. So only after I enter the password again will it open up. So I could go ahead and hit plus again. You can watch it open up. So very cool. So I could close it back up with this button, or I could enter the same password again and it will also close back up, and then you'll have to enter it again. So of course this is the same exact 3x3 piston door, just with a bit more redstone on it. This is the whole password encoding system. This whole purple circuit takes care of activating the redstone lamps and yeah, figuring out if I hit the right passcode. And down here is where the passcode is actually encoded. So right now I have it encoded for a plus sign. If I wanted to change it, what we could do is we could come over here. I'm just going to replace these with 2-tick repeaters, and then we can go ahead and I'm going to power this redstone platform right here, and I'm just going to remove all these and reset them up to the top. And in order to set your own password, I'm just going to disable the door input there. In order to set your own password, you want to use observers. So let's say I want to do like a Tetris shape. Oops. I could go like this. So the observers are what will be your password, and then the 2-tick repeaters are for blanks. So now it's set for this sort of Tetris shape, and once I remove this redstone block, it will set the password right there. Then we can put our redstone dust back, and then only after I enter that password is it going to open up. Beautiful. All right, so these 3x3 doors are absolutely amazing. But now let's move on to the 5x5 door. And once again, my friend Sacred Redstone got to work building a 5x5 door. And after a bit of work and troubleshooting, he finally got one completed and functional. And now it's just up to me to add my silly little light show. Yeah, I kind of feel inferior here. So why not take it up a notch? Sure, we can do repeating animations or a passcode, but why not display an entire encoded video on this thing? I can certainly accomplish that. Look at this. It's not part of the door yet, but I've got a working intro for Bad Apple displaying right here on this 5x5. It's obviously a rather low quality version, but now all we have to do is just hook it up to our door, right? It was at this point that I was truly out of ideas. I've spent weeks now brainstorming and trying multiple different redstone designs, but I've come up short. So I think I'll just try and keep it as simple as I can. So back in our single player world, you can see we've got multiple different 5x5 doors here. Each one has a specific animation, and the one down there is our password drawing door. So let's go ahead and close this one, and it closes rather quickly. So we'll see that. And it closes, and then our animation starts. So you can see we've got a nice little snake going back and forth there repeatedly. And I know it might look like a lot of observers over here. It's kind of an observer spam, but that's actually for taking care of the synchronization. That way we can ensure both sides arrive to the screen exactly when we want them to. So yeah, it synchronizes the left and right, and we can go ahead and open it up again. It does take about 13 or 14 seconds to open up, so it's not super fast, but for what it does, it is really impressive. I really have to give a lot of credit to Sacred Redstone again. So let's go ahead and hit it. And there we go. It's all opened back up again. And we could go ahead and go to the other side, and I'll show you it from the other side. And yeah, you can see we've got observers for powering each specific row or column of lamps. Let's go ahead and open it back up again. Or actually, I'll show you what this button does. So if I power that, that just disables the animation. You can see we've got no more animation on the screen here. And then we could power that button again, and it will start the animation back up. So you can see it's displaying again. And yeah, let's go ahead and open the door back up, and I'll show you it from this side. Yeah, so it does take a little while, but once again, Sacred Redstone did a really good job. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without him. So yeah, very, very cool. Now, diving a bit deeper into the door, you can see we've got a bunch of triple piston extenders and whatnot, and down here we've got something called a piston worm. And yeah, I could try my best to explain the whole piston door again, but like I said, I'm not a major piston door redstoner. But one thing to watch out for if you're going to build this, you can pretty much just copy it block for block, except this dropper here, you want to be able to make sure and put one item in there. Otherwise, the piston door will completely break. So just make sure you put one item in that dropper, just right up to the top right of the door. And yeah, then it should be able to work for you. And as for all the circuitry that I added, we actually have a few different elements. First of all, we have the button for opening or closing the door. It pushes this redstone block into or out of place, which starts the opening or closing sequence. And part of that sequence is actually pushing this column up or down. And that's part, or I think it's part of the lamp interrupt circuitry. That way there's no pulse we're not trying to pulse the lamps while the piston door is opening or closing. Otherwise the whole system will break. So that whole column there, I believe, is what takes care of that. It disrupts the lamp input, and there's some other pistons here. I think that's also part of it. It disrupts the lamp input. And as you can see, we've got inputs on both sides, so you can open or close it from either side. And part of that opening or closing sequence is that we want to disable the user input while the piston door is opening or closing. So the closing sequence is actually rather fast. So we just start a pulse extender here, which runs out after a little bit of time. So that will disable the user input for just a short bit of time. But if the piston door is opening, which takes a bit longer, then it starts an even longer pulse extender. And this pulse extender will power the piston over here, which disables this piston from basically triggering the input, which changes whether or not it's opening or closing. So again, this whole red circuit is what takes care of our opening and closing, and also our user input interrupt. And then of course the other crucial element is our animation. So once the animation starts, of course we can start it with this button or with opening or closing the door. It sends a pulse up to here, which pushes the rail into place, and then it just starts basically an observer clock going round and round. And this whole chain over here is something you could remove if you want to, and you can add your own animation, but I have it configured for doing a little snake animation like this. And then of course we have a very similar thing on the other side. You just got to make sure that you have the same amount of observers on either side, that way it's synced up. And yeah, it just does a whole snake animation over and over. So let's go ahead and move on to the other one. So this one, same exact design, we just have a slightly different animation. Let's go ahead and close it back up. You can see we've got a downwards kind of waterfall animation. Then we could open it back up again. And there we go. After a few seconds, everything is opened up. We could walk through, and then we could activate it again to close it. There we go. It's a bit loud. And of course, if you wanted to, you could add a clock which closes it after a few seconds, or you can just keep the manual input here. But yeah, very, very cool. And It took a bit of work, of course not on my part, but on Sacred Redstone, so he did an amazing job with this, and I was able to add all of my cool little lamp animations. But yeah, I really hope you like this. Now let's move on to the next one. So this is by far the biggest device out of all of them. This one, of course, is our 5x5 password drawing door. You could use it as just a drawing pad to draw whatever you want onto it. So just draw something like this. Doesn't really matter what you draw. And it will only open the door once I get the right password, of course. So I could do this. I could do that. Oh, look at that. What is that? Oh, that's not the password. Guess I'll have to try something else. So let's go ahead and try something else. You can really draw whatever you want to on here. Let's activate this. And our password should be a little pickaxe shape. So let's go ahead and activate List Lamp. And you'll see it starts to open. So let's just wait for it. And there we go. It's completely opened up. And we could close it again with this button. And voila, we can walk through to our secret giant base or whatever. Now again, if you're going to build the 5x5 or any of these doors, you can build it layer by layer with Litematica or whatever. You can pretty much copy it block for block, just stressing that you have to put one item in here, in this dropper on the top right, otherwise it will not work. Now moving on to how the whole password thing works. We're doing something very similar to our 3x3, except it's an even bigger display here. So we're extracting some of the signals out to the side. And one of the things is that once we activate a button, it pulses this piston to push this observer out, which triggers this. Then it goes down into our rail. It goes this way, and it goes up into the specific lamp that we're triggering. And once the piston, or once the button untriggers, it pulls the observer back. And the observer actually pulses for a short bit, but with the configuration here, the comparator doesn't actually receive the observer as it's being pulled back. That's just something very cool about using this setup. So we have each row of the buttons pushing its signal out to the side, somewhere along here, and also somewhere along here. But also, of course, we use droppers for quasi-connectivity. That's how we can pulse each button downwards, and it pulses them downwards all the way down to here into our password system. So only after the whole pickaxe shape is activated does the door open. Now, of course, we can change this password if you want to. So I'll just show you how to do this again. It's exactly the same as the 3x3, just a bit bigger this time. So I'm going to reset all these redstone blocks, put them into the up position. And like I showed, you want to activate the display, or sorry, activate the redstone platform here. That way nothing happens. And I'll actually just remove this purple block here. That's what takes care of opening or closing the door. I don't want it to accidentally trigger while we're doing this. And then I'll just remove these observers here. This is what sets your password, and you could put 2 tick repeaters, make sure each one is on 2 ticks. And you can do that on top of your platform here. And you don't need any on this last row of pistons. And now from here, you can just do whatever password you want. So by setting observers, you can set whatever password you want to. So let's go ahead and do, let's just do this shape like this. So I'll just set some things like this, and this will be a little cool shape like that. And it seems I activated something down here, so I'll just reset the redstone blocks again. And once I remove this redstone block, it will set the password just like that. And then of course we can go ahead and put our block back here for triggering the door. And then let's go to the other side and see if we can't open the door by getting the correct password. So we'll just activate some of these. And it's a bit sus, a bit amogus. There we go. It pulses the lamp display. and after a few seconds it completely opens again. So I can also close the door. This isn't really something, this is just a byproduct of how it's created. You can close the door again by setting the correct password. Of course I can't see it right now, but if I get that right, it should close again on its own. And there we go, it's completely reset. Anyway, I think that's enough jibber jabber for me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Of course, there will be a world download in the description if you want to copy any of these designs. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this idea. And thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment. Let me know what you thought of the video. And I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.